you, Diego.
Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, we'll go through I'm Toastmaster in this meeting tonight. And we have three sections to the meeting. One is the prepared speeches, then we'll go into the table topics and the evaluations, and then wrap it up. So let's go over the roles for tonight. Heather, can you go over the timer role?
As the timer, I'll keep track of how long the speeches are and how long the table topics are. So we want to hit a minimum of 5 minutes for a speech or 1 minute for a table topic. And when you do, I'll flash the green light. And then you want to shoot for a yellow light, which is the midway point. And then when you see the red light, it means to wrap up. And that's the job of the time.
Thank you, Heather.
For the table topics.
Now, who will be the odd counter for this evening?
I'll be the odd count. So my job is to look for ahs, ums, nos, and anything that's inconsistent or abuse of the English language. I'm also here to present the word of the day, which is, interestingly, it's meme, which I think most of us are familiar with memes in the internet sense, which a lot of people are not familiar with the origin of the actual word. It's an element of culture or a system of behavior that may be considered to be passed from one individual to another by non-genetic means, especially imitation. So, when you think of internet memes, they're basically copies of copies of copies. We're all telling the same joke over and over again. But more or less, the origin of the word meme is something that is, it could go back to the Shakespearean, oh, I had a great time, not, like that whole, something that we all say, we all repeat, and it's almost contagious. But it's purely, a non-existent thing. So, with that, that'll be my rule.
Thank you, Kyler. We'll have to come up with a good use of that one, hopefully.
You could use the internet definition of it too if you want, as in the noun. You can use that as well. But yeah, so it should be interesting.
Are you also the grammarian tonight?
No, I don't think I
Okay, who is the grammarian?
I am grammarian. Okay, I'm not. So that includes the abuse of English language.
Okay. And I might have not caught that part, sorry.
Yeah, that's fine.
Get the odd counter, grammarian, timer,
General value.
general value.
Olivia. I was trying to show her what a meme was.
Olivia,
Yes, good afternoon, Toastmasters and honored guests. The role of the general evaluator is I will pay attention to the flow of the meeting, including the time it started, and everyone's position, including the speeches, and I will give just a general evaluation of the flow of the meeting and notate anything that seemed to be out of order, as well as anything that went very well. That's the job of the general evaluator.
Austin, can you go over the table topics?
So the table topics are this evening's topics that are questions that are kind of vague with open-endedness for expanding upon and just personal viewpoints and personal opinions. Is that correct?
Sounds good, Austin. I think basically we don't go over the questions per se. We're just kind of, we're basically just giving out a impromptu question where you're learning your skills of just responding on the fly. And that's really kind of, personally my favorite part of the meeting is the table topics, because it just it's a lot of opportunities to freeze up or not, or figure out what to say on the fly. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce our one speech for the night.
Oh, no, he'll do speech too.
Okay, so who's going first? Oh, you're going first. All right, so we got 2 speeches tonight. And so I'll introduce our first speaker, Diego. And your speech is, you can get the stage title.
Thanks, Sean. My fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, tonight I wanted to share with you all the perspectives I have on leadership styles. It's part of the level 2 on my Pathways program in innovative planning. There's been many memes and ideas and trends and stereotypes of leadership styles. I think frequently what comes to mind for me is, surprisingly, Lord of the Rings, because you have on one side, you have Sauron, an evil dark wizard, dark half god, something like that, who operates under fear and intimidation. And then you have leadership under Gandalf and the Fellowship of the Ring, where you see it's a more cooperative mindset. He promotes a community of support and compassion and kindness. So you have those two, you have that dichotomy of leadership. And my personal journey of leadership began with high school. I was in charge of the alto saxophone section in marching band. And what I noticed was the mindset that had gotten me through 1st grade through 5th grade, middle school and high school was this perfectionist mindset that I had of making sure all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, and making sure that everything was in ship shape before I turned in a project or responsibility or I turned in homework. And so naturally I believed, oh, that mindset, now that I'm a leader, all I got to do is share that with my teammates, and we're going to have the best alto saxophone section of all time. We're going to be in tune 100% of the time. Not a single note will be missed whatsoever. And so I brought in that mindset and that perspective into this section leader space. And I noticed that I started making more enemies than teammates with that type of mindset. I remember distinctly on 2 occasions I spoke in private with an alto saxophone member who I felt wasn't enthusiastic about being in the marching band. And I remember taking him aside and talking with him and telling him really how disappointed I was at how he wasn't meeting my expectations. And I could see on his face that what was being said was going in through one ear and out the other. And so that was a red flag in my mind, telling me, okay, maybe this mindset isn't as effective as I thought it would be. Maybe it works for me, but it doesn't work in a leadership context. The next opportunity I had to be in leadership was in my master's program, where I was involved with diversity and inclusion work. I was involved with 2 different groups, one in my master's program alone, and then one at the university-wide level. And again, I remember thinking, what has gotten me through all these types of scholastic work was this mindset I had of making sure everything is going well. And so I brought that type of, I don't want to say atmosphere, but energy. That's the word I was looking for. Energy. I brought that energy into that leadership space. And again, I noticed the same consequences emerging, even at a level with students who were, at a different stage of life. I felt I was still making more enemies than I was teammates. And that really solidified the understanding and the conclusion that I made that a perfectionist mindset isn't really a long-term and sustainable leadership style. So I had to go back to the mental drawing board and think about, okay, this style might have succeeded for me in getting me where I am right now, but clearly this type of mindset isn't effective for leadership roles. And I spent a year working at Mobile Baykeeper, the local nonprofit environmental work, and I could see Casey Calloway's leadership style was one of compassion and support and cooperation, and she didn't sweat the small stuff. She focused on getting environmental work done, about raising awareness of contamination and environmental solutions in Mobile Bay. And I could see that that really resonated not only with me and with the people that she was working with, but also with the board of directors and the board of supervisors and other people who she answered to and she was held accountable to. And so that really struck a tone with me, realizing that serving as a leader and promoting cooperation and support and public praise and private criticism are really important factors and habits that I noticed in effective leadership. And so I started trying to internalize that type of mindset. The opportunity I had to exercise this mindset has been recent. I'm now involved with a climate change education event that we're organizing in September. And this is the second time we're doing it. But bringing that mindset of not sweating the small stuff and focusing on the message of the event, that is really what I'm finding to be key. Not necessarily making sure the event has these number of food trucks or has these exhibitors present or has these speakers involved. What's important is making sure the event happens, making sure the message is communicated, and accepting the reality that no matter how you imagine an event in your mind to be, when you work with a team, it's not going to play out as you imagine it to be. And you need to be accepting of that. You need to be willing to adapt to that type of reality. And you don't need to torment yourself about the small stuff. Focus on the big picture. And again, don't bring that perfectionist mindset into the room. And because your goal is to build teammates, not to make enemies. The last thing you should be doing is making enemies with the people with whom you're going to be working on this long-term project or event that you set out to do. That has been the leadership journey that I've been going on, realizing that perfectionism got me to where I am today in a solo context, in a private context, but bringing that energy into a leadership context, into a more public space, is not necessarily as effective. And I learned that letting go of that perfectionist mindset and accepting that the event that you're planning isn't necessarily going to be as you imagine it, but realizing that you shouldn't torment yourself about that and not sweating the small stuff are really important habits and key concepts that I learned with this leadership style that I'm now trying to exercise on a more regular basis. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Diego. Very good points on leadership and what you've learned. That was interesting. I can relate to some of that too. Okay, so for our next speaker, Luke, you want to...
Okay, good evening, fellow Toastmaster members. So we might all remember Hurricane Irma and Maria. So it came through in 2017, did a lot of devastation down in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. So the Coast Guard responded down there, and we had a couple different roles. And so this is just a situation brief on what we did down there, and to kind of give just a general overview. So the picture you see up on your screen, that's a ship called the Calabria 2. It was about it was over 200-foot passenger ferry that partially sunk at the pier. And you can just see the size of it just compared to the Coast Guard guys standing there on the pier with orange vests. So down in St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix, we had about 49 Coast Guard members. We had 2 NOAA members, 1 U.S. Fish and Wildlife member, and 20 EPA members. That's not counting the Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA, Red Cross, and other agencies as well. A quick breakdown of agency responsibilities, and there's a lot on this slide, but I'm just going to read the ones in bold. So for the Coast Guard, We coordinate mitigation and removal of threats to the environment with vessel owners in DPNR or the Department of Planning and Natural Resources. For NOAA and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, develop and distribute BMPs or best management practices, coastal habitat protection plan, and job aids. For the EPA, assisting the Coast Guard with data collection via response manager application, and I'll show you a little bit more about this in a previous slide. And then provide emergency response team for oil spills and other environmental emergencies. And for the Army Corps of Engineers, supports DPNR and the hurricane relief effort by accepting marine debris on territory-provided reduction sites. So St. Thomas, so this is an overview of St. Thomas. St. Thomas was broken up into 4 divisions, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. After we assessed the shoreline 100%, we identified 222 vessels of concern to the Coast Guard. And you have staging areas and intermediate holding areas. The staging areas are labeled in yellow, that's Crown Bay and Red Hook, and the intermediate holding area is labeled in red, that's Calpet Bay. What that is when the salvage crews salvage the vessels from the water, they take them to the intermediate holding area or the staging area to be properly disposed of. So here's that response manager application I talked about in that previous slide. So this is just one of the tools that we use to track all the vessels and their status and what is going on with that vessel. So we'll start up here. You can see we have the shaped triangle with different colors. So each different color means a different thing. So we have special consideration, insurance company control, the owner waived the rights to the vessel, or the owner is arranging for salvage of that vessel. Down below it, we have the circles, and you can see different colors as well. So different colors mean open, orange, recovery in progress, blue is follow-up needed, or green is closed with no follow-up needed. So let's put that together really fast. So if you look in the center of the screen, and you've got that light blue arrow, you guys can see that green circle. So when we look over, we know that that vessel is closed, there's no follow-up needed, and it's got a bright purple triangle. And we look up, and we know that that vessel, the owner has arranged for salvage of that vessel. We have the proper paperwork, we can move on, and we're not going to be touching that one. So St. John, it was broken up in 3 divisions, Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. And on St. John, after the shoreline was assessed, we identified 157 vessels that were in need of some kind of salvage or assistance. And the intermediate holding area for St. John was Great Cruise Bay. From here, all the vessels from St. John were actually barged over to St. Thomas, where they were disposed of by the Army Corps of Engineers. St. Croix, you had 5 different divisions, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. 77 vessels were identified on St. Croix. We had a staging area in Christiansted, and the intermediate holding area was in Salt River, and I actually have a picture of that in the next slide. So this is what the intermediate holding area looked like. I actually took this picture on an aerial overflight that we did. It initially got stood up, and they wanted to see how it looked and where it was situated in Salt River. And so we had a barge here. This is called a flexi barge. So what would happen is other barges that would salvage the vessels would bring the vessels close. The crane, the ones that wouldn't float, they would set on this barge, and the ones that would float, they would moor around. And then other vessels would come, take those vessels away, and then more vessels arrive. So it's just like this big rotating schedule. So when we talk about salvage, we think of damage and dropping things in the water and just kind of making a mess of things, right? Well, that's not always the case, and this is a prime example. So on St. Croix, you had multiple boats that were partially sunk or sunk on a coral reef. So we actually had NOAA coral specialists that would go out there. We would tell them the path of salvage of that vessel, where it's going. They would cut all the coral by hand, move that coral to the side. We would salvage the boat. They would physically bring that coral back by hand and glue it back in the same place that they cut it from. We also had a lot of different rules if boats were in mangroves or if boats were near birding nests or anything like that. There's multiple times we actually had to stop all operations when the flock of birds started to get excited, we would have to stop and move away because we don't want to disturb them. And so there's a lot of these practices that actually go on along with trying to do our job. So here are just some field photos. On the left, you just got a couple sunken boats. On the right, you can see one up just on the shore there. This is just a common sight all over. Another partially sunk boat on the left there. This is just a large cluster of boats. All these are laying on their sides, sitting on their keel, partially sunk, and every single one of these would have to be salvaged. So this is a picture of what it looks like. So standing on the salvage barge here, the divers would go down, rig up the slings. We'd actually physically pick the boat up, bring it on the barge, and lay it down on the barge, and move on from there. The picture on the right, you can just see that this vessel was lifted up out of the water. You can see the water line here, and so that part of that vessel had been sitting underwater for quite a while. This photo was interesting to me. So this just shows how we get lift bags and the slings on boats. So the divers in the water on the left would go down and actually put lift bags. You can see that picture on the right. These right here are all lift bags, and they strap them to the vessel, they inflate it full of air, and it would actually right that boat, and then we could pull it and move it to a different area. Here's a couple aerial overflight photos. On the left, you got 3 partially sunk tugs. They were actually discharging a lot of different oil and different kind of gas and different things for diesel. And so you can see the yellow boom around there to try to help contain some of that stuff. Had another large vessel on the right that was partially sunk. So this is Compass Point. Compass Point was one of the worst spots on St. Thomas. It had, I believe, 172 vessels, and the entire cove and everything was just like this. And so all those vessels you see over there are completely sunk up on shore on top of each other. And it was just a complete mess everywhere you went, all the way around. There were sunken boats out in the middle. It was definitely a lot of things to be taken care of out there. So not only do we do salvage and we go out there and do humanitarian aid and everything, but we also do outreach. So we go out and hold meetings like you see on your left. You got Army Corps out there, you got Coast Guard out there. Other key players such as the electric company and different things like that. We almost have these town hall meetings where the community can come, ask questions, get answers, and this information gets disseminated widely through everybody. And that picture on the right I thought was neat because this was after the meeting. You see a couple of Coast Guard guys there joining in on a prayer with the locals after one of those meetings there. And the last slide here is another outreach slide. This is one of the warrant officers at my unit here. We did like a little Halloween thing down in the center of town for some of the kids, and some of the Coast Guard members got with the fire department and some of the locals. And this was a baseball field back here, and that's the actual backstop that's all messed up there. And they went out and tried to help and fix some of these areas as well. So. And that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Shine?
When you glue the coral back, it will go a little bit dead once it's still alive.
I honestly wondered that myself, but they would take almost, I think it was like a kind of cement, and literally cement that coral back in, and I think it would just regrow and it would be fine. But they would mark, if I'm not mistaken, they physically would mark it like a GPS wherever they would pick up this coral, and they would take that coral right back to that exact spot. There was times too when we would put the barge down into these massive poles that go way down into the sand. And when we moved the barge, we physically had to go back and try to rake sand in these holes that were underwater that were probably this deep because they wanted to. So they're definitely particular about it. We don't want to go out there and just mess things up or anything, so we try to keep that in mind.
I noticed that you said a lot about how you try to preserve natural habitat, coral reefs, and birds' nests and things like that. So what if while you were picking up some of these vessels, you had large fish or whatever, did you try to preserve them as well, get them back in the water, or you got just pick them up?
Oh no, I don't remember that ever happening. I was on one of the salvage barges for about 42 days. I don't remember that ever happening, but if we got boats in mangroves, which mangroves are all over out there, it would take a long time to get these boats out because a lot of these bird nests were in there and sea turtles and different things. And we had to physically, we would have to stop all operations, move this massive barge, it's not easy, away from these birds just so they would calm down, and then we'd have to go back. Those BMPs that I said in the first slide, best management practices, that's what they put out. They say, hey, if you're near mangroves, you will follow this, and these rules. And they're really, really strict about it. So we have to definitely make sure that we're doing it. Okay, well, thank you guys. Back over.
Very interesting. Okay, this portion of our meeting is, we're gonna go to the table topics. So I will relinquish the lectern to Austin on table topics.
So we'll just start with some topics that I found more on the superficial layer, small talk, and slightly to the more deeper layer. So the first question I just have is, what has life taught you recently? Any experiences you've gone through recently in the past year or so? Any lessons you've learned? What has life taught you recently? Luke, right? Luke?
So I know I just spoke and I didn't want to get back up and do another table topic, but last week I was the table topic master and I was going to do one of these situations or questions because I did have a lot go on the last couple weeks. You know, I wasn't at the meeting for 2 weeks, and you know, life can change in a lot of ways. You know, work's been busy and everything like that, but also had a couple things go on in my personal life that I find it kind of crazy that one day, you know, things are completely normal, and before you know it, with one phone call or like a little bit of news, your whole life is like changed from that moment on, and you're not expecting it. It can be good and bad news, and I know for me, it definitely just makes you think. And so my topics last week were going to be along the lines of, you know, just the same question he asked. That's why I kind of jumped on this one. But you know, life is unexpected, and it can change in an instant on anything. And sometimes we forget it because we get comfortable and complacent. And I'm just was reminded of that pretty intensely these last couple of weeks. And so I do apologize for missing those meetings, but definitely had a lot going on. But just be thankful for what you got and try not to take it for granted. Thank you.
Move to another question. Another question?
It's you're the master.
All right, all right.
You're calling the shots.
I think that was a great answer, and I think just to keep the momentum going. Second question: what is your favorite quote and why? For me, I grew up thinking about the quote of Aristotle, and you are what you repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. And so, performing excellence every day is not something that's outstanding. It is what you are. And having that identity is very important. Quote that's followed me around in my life. So, if anyone has a quote they'd like to share, okay.
And my favorite quote, by the way, I'm Carrie. Nice to meet you, some of them, and good to be here. And my favorite quote from Lincoln. Unfortunately, I don't know the English, so let me translate English to Japanese and Japanese to English. So basically, meaning is if you know about only 50%, just give to her. And then because you're not sure, only 50% sure, right? I'm talking about when you're arguing or not arguing, discussing. And then if you're pretty sure 80% and the topic is not very important to you, still give it to her, give it to him. The reason is if you do that way, the relationship always good. Some people really insist, I am right, you're not right. Or it doesn't matter, you are right, you're right, and then who is right? That's the discussion is not about the who win, you lose, or I win or you lose. It's always try to go to win relationship. So that's the technique for me. And then again, 50% sure, give it to you, give it to her, give it to him. and 80% or even for me 100% sure, still the topic is not important, give it to you, give it to her. And then if the topic is important for me, I might say something really nice way, but usually that's not the big deal. That's not the point. Always give it to her, give it to you, give it to him. That's what I'd like to share with you tonight. Thank you.
All right, so again, what is your favorite quote and why? Just,
I had to Google mine because I don't have it memorized. My favorite quote is by Mother Teresa. She's, I know, but it's really good. Let no one ever come to you without leaving better and happier. Be the living expression of God's kindness. Kindness in your eyes, kindness in your face, and kindness in your smile. And I think that's so important because everything in the world is take. Everyone takes. But if you can take a moment just to give to someone and they can leave, I was frustrated or upset about something, but then just being around someone who is cheerful, it can change your whole day. It can, completely do a 180. When I go get coffee and the girl is super nice or whoever is super nice, it's just like, okay, is it really that bad? Kind of gives you a perspective of, like Luke was saying, what is really important. Am I really just upset about, whatever? Kind of brings you back down out of yourself. So like I was saying, a lot of the things in the world they take from you, and sometimes it can help you as well to give back. And I used to be in a social work type job, and I would have to read this quote constantly. Okay, I'm not feeling this today, but that's not fair to the person that's coming in to see me for assistance. Like, I still have to give them the same respect and the same amount of time as a client that I have that isn't difficult and doesn't need anything, just come in to check in. So that is one of the quotes that has resonated with me in every area of my life. So thank you.
I like that, especially with giving in terms of a compliment. You don't lose anything by giving back. It's just that's great. I'm going to move on to my third one. What have you done in the last year that you're proud of? Something that you've achieved, a way that you helped?
What have I done in the last year that I'm proud of? Good evening, Toastmasters members and our guests. So I was telling some of us that was here before I started that this past weekend, for 2 years in the making, I have been preparing myself to deliver the message at church. So this past this past weekend, I was the keynote speaker. And I delivered my message. It was about 46 minutes. So to a congregation of over 100 people, where I got a standing ovation, and it was beautiful. I was excited, and so that's a major. Aside from joining Toastmasters, which is the reason why I joined Toastmasters, was so that I could be that keynote speaker that I so longed to be. I did my first one, so I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the next one. I've already been offered a job, so within that area, so we'll just see. I'm moving into my calling. I'm excited.
So yeah, what have you done in the last year proud of? Single person, going once, twice, 2 times? All right. Slightly deeper. If you knew failure was not an option, what would you attempt? If you knew you could not fail, what would you go and do? A lot of times hesitation comes from the risk that's on the other side of stepping out into something that you think that would be something cool. For me, I kind of want to do a YouTube channel. I also want to invest in real estate, and I want to try flying planes. So I'm kind of scattered right now. But I'd love to hear failure was not an option, what would you attempt?
What was the second thing you said? YouTube and what?
Oh, I'm trying to do flight school, real estate, and YouTube channel. Very scattered, but I think this question recently was asked by a Christian research psychologist Brene Brown, who studies shame and vulnerability and how being vulnerable is to be courageous. So this question kind of sparked in me, what would I want to do if failure wasn't an option? I'd like to open it up to any of you.
No, I'm just thinking. I'm thinking it's like the rest of you.
It is a slightly deeper question.
I start crying.
Would you like to say one?
Lots of famous people or successful people said that the failure is when you stop, when you fail. That's the fail. Just keep doing until successful. Failure never happens. So when you feel like you're going to fail or you're afraid of fail, still keep doing. But sometimes the direction is wrong. You fail, probably the successful, the star is right there, but you're looking at this way, or you're looking at this way, or you're looking at this way. So you have to change your direction toward the on the right track. You sometimes feel like is it the right or wrong, or you may not, but it is at least what you're doing is not necessarily right. So just try to change a little bit, 5-degree change or 9-degree change, I don't know. But just try some different way. And by talking with somebody or by reading a book or whatever you can do. And then just keep doing until you're successful. So you never ever have failure, never happen. Again, failure is when you stop doing. When failing, that's the failure. And that's basically from, for example, you know Panasonic? And Panasonic founder Mr. Matsushita said that, and quite many successful people say the same thing. So if failure is not an option, because it's not an option, you just decide to fail or not.
That's right.
Thank you.
Okay, one final question. So I kind of have two, and we'll just end on these two and answer which one you want. One, what would you tell yourself if you could travel back in time 5 years ago? And two, what job would you do for free? What would you do, wake up in the morning and go and do that didn't pay you money, but it gave you some sort of fulfillment?
So the question that resonated the most with me was, if I could go back in time 5 years, what would I tell my past self? And I feel that this is time travel is an important meme that really gives us an opportunity to explore what we feel we could have done better if we were wiser back then. And I think for me, again, I don't think I would have been receptive to this, but the advice I would have shared was, don't play so many video games. Because I feel that, I know myself, and I'm sure other people in the room, we were raised in the era of the internet. The internet was this new technology of opportunity. We could find a community that we belong to if we didn't feel a part of the society that we are born and raised in. And the great appeal of the internet and video games and many other short-term delights is the appeal of dopamine. Right now, let's enjoy the moment right now. And it's really, I feel, a huge opportunity and to exercise self-discipline and keeping in mind the long-term goals that you have in mind of getting a job, of raising a family, of feeling fulfilled in life. And I feel that video games and an irresponsible and immature relationship with the internet can kind of remodel our brain to only think in the short term. And the short term is a very definition of something that is where you're only thinking of tomorrow or the next day, but you're not realizing that your life is more than just tomorrow or the weekend, but it's going to be full of many weekends and full of obstacles as well. And we need to be able to exercise that other part of our brain of long-term planning as well. And so that would be the advice that I would give myself with time travel.
I don't know how to hand it over. Thank you for answering these questions. I appreciate it. And I will now hand it over to
The Toastmaster.
the Toastmaster.
Okay, well, now I will relinquish the lectern to the general evaluator. Olivia.
I just want. Good afternoon, Toastmasters, guests again. I am going to give my general evaluation, but I will start by calling up the speech evaluator, and I think that's Cheyenne. You're going to come and evaluate Diego's first speech.
Hello. I'm here to give the evaluation for the speech leadership styles, as I gathered the title was. I will start with clarity. I gave you a 4. Your spoken language was very clear. I think you relayed your message very well. We understood what information you were trying to give us. For vocal variety, you stay pretty consistent with the tone and the pace you were using. One thing I'd recommend is try to use more variety. You were very consistent, but you could have went up and down more, maybe shown some disappointment in your tone when you were talking about the story, when you're speaking with the other student. There were just some opportunities that I think you could have used a different tone, but you were consistent, so that's good. It wasn't too all over the place. Your volume was fine. Wasn't struggling to hear, which I usually do, so that's good. Eye contact, I did notice, I gave you a 3, I did notice most of the time you were looking down when you were telling your stories, so it kind of closed you off, but when you came back from your story, I did notice you would look around the room to each person, you would kind of start hearing, like you were kind of checking in, like I'm back from my story, making sure you guys are still engaged, so I thought that was good. Let's see. Gestures, I gave you a 2, didn't really use gestures that much this time. I can't really give you examples of where you could have implemented them. But usually you'll do these, I notice you do these gestures, so you usually use them more frequently. So I gave you a 2, it may not have been as necessary for this speech. For audience awareness, like I said earlier, you realize, I've been looking down, so I'm gonna pan the room to make sure that everyone is paying attention still with me. So I thought that was good. Comfort level, you seem very comfortable with your topic. It can be hard to tell everyone, here's a mistake I made. Let me just share that with you. So there was some kind of level of vulnerability with the speech, but you were comfortable sharing it with us, and you didn't shy away from that. Or some people, when they get uncomfortable sharing things, they kind of speak lower, turn rate, but you faced it full on, and I thought that was admirable to do that. It was very interesting. It was a personal speech, so I gave you a 3 on the interest. Like I said, it was personal to everyone in here, I believe. We can all kind of look at ourselves and see ways that we do that, maybe not in a formal position of leadership, but in families, you're a leader, in classes, you may be a leader at work. So I think it applied to many different situations. For one thing you excelled at, you explained what your problem was in the beginning, and then you identified the solution. You told us that what you did is step back and find a solution to the issue that you were speaking to us about. And I think that was good, because for me it keeps my interest. Okay, I'm going to hear a solution to this problem. Oh, I do that. I have that problem. Here's the solution. You may want to work on, I know this is a small setting, but if you gave this speech in a formal setting, there's like formal definitions of like styles of leadership, so you could look that up. What type was that? It's like democratic. It's like, you know, they have the proper vocab for it. So you could do that if you want to use it for a bigger setting. And then to challenge yourself, the speech was more a story. Like I said, small setting, so it was appropriate. But if you want to make it a more official speech format, you know, the terms and then the more flow, an official flow of the speech points. So that is my evaluation of the speech. It was really good though. Thank you for sharing.
That's pretty good, Diane. I don't know, I hate to be judgmental, but, so, pardon me for saying it. That's probably the best evaluation I've ever heard. Do you feel like you've learned a lot?
Yeah.
That was a good one. I don't think I've ever seen one.
Her
Like
evaluation.
that. I mean, but that was, I don't think you left anything unturned. Everything, that was, wow. I'm impressed. Okay. Tell me, do I call up my roles? Do I do my, okay.
Oh, you can do your thing first.
All right, so general evaluation, we started 1 minute late, and we didn't have all the roles assigned, so I kind of gave that a little sad face. So please, yeah, that was my mean, but please,
Well done.
so including me, please just remember to go on Easy Speak and try to get those roles assigned. Diego is the most diligent, Maurice as well, in trying to get the roles assigned, and so it's not the best thing to do, and we have to do it when the meeting's supposed to be started. So please remember to go on to Easy Speak and sign up for your roles. Toastmaster, Sean, I know I say this all the time, and it almost seems like I'm, going over, but you have your face is just like the kindest of gentle face. It never changes. So to see you doing the role of Toastmaster, it's perfect for you. You just do a good job. Club business, it's always an important part of the meeting. It's essential, and it's informative. So club business is, again, it's important. We have to have it, and it's good to know what goes on besides just sitting up here, chattering, talking, having a good time. This is no business, and we have to take care of it. So thank you, Maurice and Diego, for always keeping us abreast of our business. Diego, your speech, when you started out with the Lord of the Rings, I was like, oh my God, I'm lost, because I don't know anything, never watched.
I was lost.
Yeah, so I was like, uh-oh, he just lost me. But you were able to give the definition and explain what it meant, so that was awesome. And at the same time, you were thinking, and you said, I don't want to use this word, the word I'm looking for is, and I was thinking, you know what, no matter what this topic is, you have great energy. So no matter what you're talking about, it's just fitting. So I always enjoy it. Luke, your situation brief, I'm just always in awe. You just never really think about what goes on behind the scenes, all the time. There's always something, and that's just what makes our country what it is, and it's what makes us unique. It just reminds me of how unique all of us are. Yet we come together to do this Toastmasters, but our walks in life, our backgrounds are so different. So to Diego and Luke, thank you so much for your service to mankind. Because truly, you guys, really, even with your environment, is that not because you care at all?
Oh, I thought you were talking about like the fact that we gave a speech. I was like, that's not a service to.
No, what you do,
Oh,
your
yeah.
contribution,
Yeah,
your
okay.
contribution, your area of expertise.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for your table topics. Austin, it was very impressive, and you seem to be a natural. And you don't ever have to say, this is my first time. No one would have known that. Someone told me that when I said, okay, I'm doing a pocket speech. Yeah, it was a pocket speech, and I think that was someone's critique. And they was like, if you hadn't said that, no one ever would have known. So of course we do know, but I mean, you don't even have to worry about saying that anymore. You are just a natural. You did an awesome job, and I was impressed. So with that being said, that just about concludes my general evaluation, and I will now get the reports from all of our report keepers. And it's okay with you guys, I'll start with the timer report. So Heather.
So Diego's speech was a 5 to 7 minute speech, and you finished just around 7 minutes. Luke's speech was a 7 to 9 minute speech, and you finished at 9 minutes and 42 seconds. And then the questions were about an extra 2 minutes. For table topics, Sean was 2 minutes and 7 seconds. Cheyenne was 1 minute and 46 seconds. Luke's table topic was 1 minute and 26 seconds. Carrie, your first one was 1 minute and 34 seconds, and the second one was 1 minute and 31 seconds. You were like really on point. And then Olivia, it was about 4 minutes.
Thank you so much for your time report, Heather. And we'll move on to the grammarian, odd counter, and the word of the day book counter. And that will be Tyler.
All right, so I guess we'll start with the word of the day. And one thing I was going to add is, while I was looking up the definition, right next to the Webster's Dictionary definition below is the Urban Dictionary definition, and it said means the cure for depression. It's like, no, that's not what that is. But it was funny because if you're familiar with any of that means, they're always claiming to be something they're not, and they're rarely ever true. So I felt like that was a good definition by being so wrong. But anyway, so so everyone used the word definition correctly. Diego had to use it twice, and then Olivia used it once. So that was good. So we'll move on to the odd counter and filler words. Sean didn't have any to my knowledge. And then Diego, you had 2 ofs, and I don't know how this would count, but you said and twice a couple times. Like you say and, which I don't know if that's listed as a filler word, but I feel like it kind of serves the same purpose as a filler word. So I'll go ahead and count that because, like I said, I'm probably used 10 filler words just describing this. But basically, it could be any word really, as long as you're using like a noised pause. That's to me is a filler word. Let's see, Luke, you had about 10, and then you also were using the double and that I was referring to earlier, which again, like it doesn't impede the flow of the speech, but like I said, I still think I would consider a filler word just for you guys to be aware of. Austin, you did good. I didn't hear anything. Cheyenne, you had a and Olivia had 3 so's. Carrie had 1 of. I think that was it. And then I didn't hear any, and then like the and was kind of included with the grammarian report. So.
Thank you so much, Kyler, for your report. And I will turn this picture back over.
And again, that's all the rules.
I will turn this back over to our Toastmaster, Sean.
Thank you, Olivia. All right, do we have an educational overview?
No, not tonight.
Okay. All right, well, with that, I will turn over the lectern back to our president.
Thank you, Sean. I now want to relinquish the lecture to our area director, Brandon, for officer installation. Thanks so much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Who's all here tonight? Officer-wise?
5 of us.
Sean.
5 out of the 7.
5 out of 7?
Yeah.
So we got president here, right?
That's right.
Yes.
No treasurer?
No.
Justin's not here today.
What about Sergeant at Arms?
Don's not here.
Secretary?
Olivia's here.
Lizzie's here. Public relations?
That's Sean.
Sean. Yeah. Membership, Luke's here.
Mm-hmm.
And then education is
Maurice.
Yes.
President.
That's me.
All right. Well, we'll try to get it done real quick. First of all, my name is Brent O'Brien. I'm the area director here. I'm in charge of helping the clubs do right and educate them on everything and help support them. I do Top Cats, I also have one in downtown Mobile called Downtowners. I also do one on Red Lobster, it's called the Top Cats. And also I have another one up in Laurel, Mississippi, which I'm going to visit next week. And the thing I like about Toastmasters is not a right time or a wrong time. Because they meet Monday morning at 6:30 in the morning. Y'all meet at 6:34 at night. The Top Cats meet at lunchtime on Monday. So 3 out of my 4 clubs all meet on Monday. I'm the only club that don't meet on Monday. So one of the things I do is we relinquish the duties of the old members of the clubs, and then bring in the new members of the club member officers. And so what I don't think any of those guys are here, but you guys just kind of swap around and meet the ones anyway, didn't y'all? Come again? The old members to the new members?
Well, there's a few of us who are old. I'm the ex VP of PR.
Okay.
Sean's new and Olivia's new.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna jump into installing the new ones instead of getting out the old ones.
Yes.
Speed it up, because I know some of y'all get other things to do and stay here all night. All right, I'm here to install the officers of the Hilltoppers Toastmasters Club 3232 to prepare them for challenges that lie ahead. They share challenges is to make the club strong, dedicate to help them from all walks of life to speak in an effective way, listen with understanding, and think creatively. I will ask each officer to hold the gavel as a symbol of leadership as I briefly describe the challenges she must meet, responsibilities must be filled. I'm going to start off with the secretary. Stand up, please. As a secretary, you maintain an accurate membership roster, submit the new club officer list to Toastmasters International on time, work with the treasurer to submit club's semi-annual reports and dues to Toastmasters International on time, provide the club minutes at each meeting. We perform these duties as the best of your ability. You do, yes ma'am. We'll do public relations. Sean, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
You get to hold the gavel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, or just pound it in if you want. Sean, as the VP of Public Relations, you attract visitors to the club through free publication and use a variety of meetings to promote the club, list fellow club members through the PR activities, provide them with promotional material, ideas for inviting guests, regularly convince members' achievements and methods such as announcements and newsletters. We perform these duties to the best of your abilities. There you go. Thank you, sir. Luke, membership. It's a long one. As VP of membership, you lead the club's membership building efforts to achieve the membership goals of new members by promoting the membership goals of one new member per month. Firstly, greet guests, provide them with guest packets, include membership application, make sure each guest hears about the benefits of Toastmasters, get a personal invitation to become a member, follow up with all members. New members join membership not attending members, promptly give new members applications and dues to the treasurer. We perform these duties to the best of your ability. Yes, sir. Good. Thank you. Now the other one is Vice President of Education. Good times. My favorite one. And Maurice is Vice President of Education. Gain commitments from members to give education goals for themselves. Ensure the club membership are always aware of scheduled meetings and roles. Plan the meeting with assistant members in getting their goals. Work with club members to keep members with fun, well worked and run. Work with your members to ensure that they submit their applications for education awards promptly. Provide educational topics at club meetings such as those club success series. Leadership excellence. Present the club area and district club meetings. And is the second highest ranking officer, preside over the meeting when the president is absent. We perform these duties to the best of your abilities.
Yes, I do.
All right. And finally, the president. Diego, as president of Toastmasters Club, Hilltoppers 3232, you are the chief executive officer. Thus, you preside over all club meetings and all meetings of your club executive committees. It is your challenge to see that the club adds new members, meets the needs of its current membership, to achieve these communication and leadership goals, establish a club climate that is supportive, motivating,
rewarding to its members, and realize that among the resources available to you are fellow good club members, officer club, club officer handbooks, area governor, and district website. Diego, you hold the gavel as a symbol of power and authority for your club as you give your term of office. I am confident you will use your wise with restraint and as due your term of office. I am confident you will use your wisely with restraint. As well as a leader, you will work with your executive committee, club members to make Hilltoppers Club a presidential club this year.
I shall.
I shall. Thank you. All right, all members stand, please. Members of Hilltoppers, please stand. Your officer team has just pledged to serve your club to the best of their ability. To be the best Toastmaster club possible and to meet the needs of all the club members, your club will need to achieve presentations from each of your members. You members pledge to work together with the officer team to make Hilltoppers the finest club in the area.
I do.
We will. All right. By authority vested in me as the area governor, it is my sincere pleasure to dedicate the Toastmaster Club installation to your clubs. So now you got the new club members in. Have a seat. I'm sorry. Have a seat. One of the things that I like about Toastmasters is what I first learned was that how to run a meeting. And so, as a leader, in order to effect a meeting, you need an agenda. So y'all are right there. You just need to fine-tune some more things to do to run the meeting correctly. Some other things that, each club has their own little nuances or things they like to do. One of the things I tell y'all guys to do, if you've got a roll coming up, go into Toastmasters and look at that roll and look how it's set up. Because just one of the little details that y'all can do to make the meeting run a lot more effective or better to get something out of it. It's like one of the things that I like, is always my favorite, some of y'all to do, is the topic masters. And one of the things we do at my club is, we don't ask for somebody to volunteer. We come up with a topic, and what do they do? The VP comes up with a topic for that meeting. So like the topic of the meeting could be the dog days of summer. All right? So you can kind of base your meeting off the dog days of summer. So that could be your topic. So then you come up with the topic ideas for that. So what we do at my meeting is, we want everybody to get a chance to come up and speak. Whatever way it is, whether it's the topic masters or you're doing a speech or you're giving times or whatever. The reason you come here is to get up and try to get out of your comfort zone, correct? Mm-hmm. So what we do is we'll come up with the topic and we'll say, okay, now Luke, what do you think about that? We don't give you a chance to volunteer. We got to put you in that position because, by doing that, it forces you to say something. Now, whether it's good or bad or not, that's okay though, because once you start doing it more often, the better you get at it. So the more of these meetings you come to, the better you feel about getting in that situation or getting in front of people. Because sometimes these meetings will be big, sometimes they'll be even small. But we're here for all one reason. And what that is? To learn and get educated and be better speakers. And what the way to do that is among friends. Because your friends are going to tell you what you did right or what you did wrong. Hopefully, right?
Cheyenne will.
Yeah. She did a good job. One of the things I always tell clubs is, look, you pay $45 every 6 months. And what do you get for that $45? You come here to meet with people? Yes and no. But go to the website, log in, use the pathway. That's a new way to doing things. But any and everything that you can do for a meeting, somebody's already did it or it's already in there. All right? Just to make your meeting better. One of the other things some of the other clubs do is they make table topics. So like, you'll know who Diego is. All right? And then also, some people make table topics so you'll know who the Toastmaster is that day, or who the topics master is, or who the general bandwagon is. So you get a new member to come in, they're not gonna know who their names are. Just another something to help y'all improve your meeting. To me, once you move along in your club, I always want to leave it better than I got here to it. I mean, some of the things that other clubs do, like October's coming up, so it's dues time again. I mean, so people, you're supposed to have a bank account. One of the things people do is they use a Venmo or they use a Square to help people pay for their dues. So there's an easier way to do things. Because some people don't use checks anymore. Does anybody here have a checkbook? How many people got checkbooks? All right? All right, so half people have either. Everything now, everything's digital now. And so, you know, with Toastmasters, everything's on the website now. You know, just like everything else. Whether you're ordering a car, a pair of shoes, or paying your kids' tuition, everything's online now. So, my biggest advice to you guys is, go use that website. Go in there and see what they've got to use for you, because that's part of your $45 you spend every 6 months to help pay for Toastmasters besides showing up here. There's a big headquarters in Colorado that people sit around all day and try to make this thing better for you to use. So go out there and use it. Thank you guys for having me. If y'all got anything, we are going to try to have a governor's ball this year in this area. So when I say governor's ball, we're going to do awards, we're going to do more speeches, people get dressed up, we're going to have a little, little food and stuff like that. So sometime next year, we're going to have a governor's ball for this area. So look forward to that. So if you think about, we'll have different events in there, from table topics to humorous speech to a serious speech. So think about that if y'all guys want to do that and get involved with that. Let me know. I'd love for y'all to come out and do it. Thanks again.
A lot of wisdom was shared tonight, and I know we ran a bit over, so we're just going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone.